The president and his family got a large investment from an Abu Dhabi royal for their private crypto company. He's suing his own government for $10 billion, and he's named in the new Epstein files, along with many other wealthy and powerful people. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. First off, congratulations to the Trump family on Melania, which reportedly grossed over $7 million, the best showing in a decade for a documentary excluding concert films. And this must mean so much to the Trump family, as they are well-known documentary heads. I can only imagine Donald calling up Melania as the news came in. Honey, are you sitting down? We beat winged migration. I can't believe it either. Those dumb birds is right, my love. Congratulations as well to everyone involved in the making of the film, including the director Brett Ratner, seen here on the red carpet at the premiere. Oh, wait, no, hold on. That's not a red carpet. That's a picture of Brett Ratner from the Epstein files that were released this week. God, can we not let him enjoy his day? Shame on us. Sadly, the Trumps can't bask for too long in the glow of their Hollywood success, because today is another one of those days where there are about half a dozen stories in the news that would be major scandals for any other president. In fact, it turns out that $7 million box office was nothing compared to what the Trump family raked in from the Middle East.
The Wall Street Journal reports the Trump family's cryptocurrency firm, World Liberty Financial, sold nearly half the company, a 49% stake, to a member of the Emirati royal family before Trump's inauguration. Months later, the Trump administration approved a deal to send highly coveted American AI computer chips to the UAE.
An Abu Dhabi royal agreed to give the president's private crypto company, World Liberty Financial, $500 million, which in movie terms is like 71 Melanias. And in return, the president gave his country access to tightly guarded American technology. If you wanted to go back in time and give Ben Franklin an aneurysm, all you'd have to do is read that sentence to him, and then he would say, just a couple questions. What's Abu Dhabi? What's crypto? And what's a billion? And then we would say, it's too long to explain, Ben. Also, we are still having no Kings rallies. And by the way, World Liberty doesn't even do anything or make anything. It just sells invisible tokens. They didn't have the decency to run a scam that even made a fungible product. Like, even if they made chintzy, Trump-themed Labubu knockoffs called La True Trues, you know, that would be better, because at least they need a factory. By the way, the same people who are cool with the president getting $500 million from a foreign government lost their when Barack Obama wore a tan suit and put Dijon mustard on his burger and called him, this is real, President Poupon. They're also suing the government that Trump is in charge of.
President Trump and two of his sons, Eric and Donald Trump Jr., are suing the IRS and the Treasury Department. The lawsuit stems from what they say was the unauthorized disclosure of the president's tax information during his first term. An IRS contractor pleaded guilty to that. The Trumps are seeking $10 billion in damages.
$10 billion? You know how you know a lawsuit is bull when you sue for a cartoonishly large and round number. $10 billion. His total IRS budget is projected to be around $11 billion. So Donald Trump is suing for almost the entire IRS budget, and I do feel like he should know those numbers because it's his government. By the way, not only is he suing the government that he's currently in charge of, he's suing over something that happened in 2020 when he was also president. This is like the coach of the New York Jets suing the New York Jets for emotional trauma. They never know the plays, no one's ever prepared. And now the same party that used to pretend to care about the Constitution and fiscal discipline is claiming the president can just write himself a check for whatever he wants.
You're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting. I have another one where, I've virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in suit. And, I have to work out some kind of a settlement. I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself.
Hey, man, if you're trying to work out anything with yourself, make it while you keep trying to fill the hole in your heart with money and it's still an empty cavern of loneliness. My therapist keeps saying I need to have a talk with Donald, and I always say, no thanks, that guy seems like a dick. Wears a tuxedo on an airplane. Pretty dicky thing to do. But of course, Trump doesn't actually care about justice. He just wants to get paid, which is why it's so funny he says this.
You're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting.
Oh, man. He makes it sound like he's drawn to this lawsuit because of the intellectual challenge. You know, it's very interesting. It's fascinating, really, because there's one outcome where I don't get money and another one where I do, so there's really no telling which way I'll land. So the president wants to give himself $10 billion of taxpayer money, but the country doesn't even have time to focus on that because he's also arresting journalists and sending his masked paramilitary force to violently occupy American cities, and his own intelligence director was seen mysteriously lurking in the shadows during a raid at an elections office.
This week, an unprecedented raid unfolded in Georgia when the FBI carried out a search warrant Wednesday at an election center in Fulton County seeking 2020 in-person and absentee ballots, tabulator tapes, and voter rolls. And while agents loaded up boxes with these materials, photographs showed Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, in other words, the United States' top spy leader, was on the scene speaking on the phone.
She was seen literally creeping in the shadows of the Trump administration's latest abuse of power. That's Gabbard last night at the edge of a loading bay at the elections office of Fulton County, Georgia, while the facility was being raided by the FBI.
This brings us to a segment called Seth Has a Very Complicated Question. Seriously, what's going on here? Why is the director of national intelligence lurking in the shadows during an FBI raid at a Georgia elections office? And also, why is she so bad at lurking? You're supposed to be our top spy. We see you. Your black hat isn't fooling anyone. It doesn't turn you invisible. This is like when you play with a 5-year-old and they crouch behind a chair and you have to loudly say, "Oh my goodness, where could Tulsi be?" By the way, I'm not the only one who's at a loss to explain what's going on here. Even the Justice Department claims they have no clue.
Why was the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, present at an FBI raid?
First of all, it wasn't an FBI raid. It was a search warrant being executed by FBI agents in the middle of the day.
Why was she there?
And secondly, I don't know why the director was there.
I don't know why the director was there. My best guess is she's taking a series of photos for a children's book in which the goal is to identify where she's hiding. So it's just been one scandal after another, but all of that took a backseat on Friday when the Justice Department released another batch of Epstein files, a story the president and his administration have been desperately trying to make go away. I mean, seriously, how is it possible that this story has faded so quickly from the front pages? Remember when we learned that our wealthiest and most powerful people were connected to a guy who ran a literal child sex trafficking ring, and then that guy died mysteriously in a jail, and now we just don't talk about it? Wait, sorry, that wasn't me saying that. I was quoting the vice president who tweeted those exact words almost 5 years ago. Now, wait. But in fairness, J.D. Vance has been consistent. He's been talking a lot about the Epstein scandal. A lot. Even when it's uncomfortable for his boss, who was the Statler to Epstein's Waldorf. I mean, here are all the times Vance has discussed the latest batch of Epstein bombshells since Friday.
Just kidding. I was. Full of
These latest Epstein files are truly shocking. They reveal a world of wealthy and powerful people on both sides of the aisle who were deeply connected to a notorious sex trafficker and who lied about those connections. That includes prominent Democrats and Republicans, among them the president and several of his closest allies.
The Justice Department's final Epstein files release, the revelations we've uncovered so far, and the big names mentioned, including Elon Musk, former President Clinton, and President Trump.
There's also a huge blast radius of so many people. Bill Clinton, Howard Lutnick.
The files released today indicate President Trump's current Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, apparently did plan a visit to Epstein's Island.
You have names like Bill Gates or Larry Summers.
Billionaire Richard Branson shows up in the files too, hosting Epstein twice and exchanging friendly emails in 2013. New York Giants co-owner Steve Tisch shows up hundreds of times.
In a number of emails, Musk and Epstein seem to be discussing plans for Musk to visit Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. In one 2012 email, Musk asking, "What day night will be the wildest party on your island?"
You know, sometimes I think Elon Musk is a lump with no charisma, but then he writes a line of poetry like, "What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?" And I stand correct. What day, night will be the wildest party on your island is not a question you should ever ask anyone, but especially not a guy who, at that point, was already a registered sex offender. You're being about as slick as Tulsi Gabbard at an FBI raid. We're living in MAGA's warped world where everything is upside down and nothing matters except who has power and who does not. They hail violent January 6 rioters as heroes and call peaceful ICE protesters domestic terrorists. Hunter Biden sells a painting. They say he's part of a crime family. But the Trumps sell half a coin company to an Abu Dhabi royal, and it's just businessmen doing deals. The feds raid Mar-a-Lago looking for stolen classified documents and find them. And MAGA calls that lawfare, but the feds raid an election office looking for non-existent evidence of a disproven conspiracy theory, and they say it's just the normal course of investigation. The government rounds up children and families and citizens and claims they're going after the worst of the worst, while at the same time they cover up for wealthy and powerful elites named in the emails of a guy who is actually the worst of the worst. All they've done is proven once again that they believe in nothing other than power. Our elites and institutions have lost all credibility. Their only consistent principle is that they are full of. This has been A Closer Look.
Thanks for watching.